All right, so I was thinking about what does the moral high ground look like, and when in life do we take that? And there's a lot of stuff wrapped around that moral high ground, like getting to a place where you even feel like you could be superior or have a higher view point or perspective than the people that you're dealing with. And I think for me, part of going through therapy and part of trying to navigate this life that was laid in front of me from a child, and at the point that I tried to take control or tried to take responsibility for my life, I felt, I think with that clarity comes kind of a sense of superiority, or it perhaps imbued me at times with a sense of self-righteousness, like my integrity or my morals were pure and clean, and I was able to look back and say and almost judge others as like kind of a process in my healing of like, oh, how could I have been a part of that? Well, they influenced me at the time. Well, and in reality, I was a willing participant. Whether it was indoctrination, whether it was corrosive persuasion, at that time, I was a willing participant in whatever relationship, religion, whatever thing that I've decided I need to heal from. I chose to look and not look back with this sense of on high, like I'm above or exalted from this now that I've looked at it. And it's not that it's not okay to be at that place, because sometimes that's a safer place to be when all the place and what you've always known and where you've come from, and even perhaps where you went to try to seek solace, is toxic and is on fire, and people are still trying to burn each other to the ground because that's sort of what feels comfortable. You know, when we're talking about this healing from these not so optimum situations that we a lot of the times had zero control of in our lives, it was chaotic. It was overwhelming. How would we didn't even have the resources half the time as children, being SA'd or being neglected or locked in closets or just verbally abused or just outright being smacked or denigrated or just given away. We didn't have the tools to look at that and the decisions and the nuances and what and how we chose to survive is sometimes meant life or death. It meant making those awful decisions, but at the time, those were survival. Those were decisions that made sense for us to live in this animalistic maybe state that we were nurtured or corrosively persuaded into. So taking that higher ground, once you kind of start to go back and do the work and look at everything, is sort of a natural progression. I guess it's just the influence that we put on it. Do we now act like and judge everybody that we came from and condemn them, or do we find something that we can understand? And not that we're going to jump back in and swim out to try to save somebody. I guess that's kind of the nuance of moving past something, is you can look back at it with maybe not so much emotion and toxicity attached, and in turn maybe reform those neural pathways that are so deeply ingrained, and not change them, because that seems like that's almost impossible with some developmental pathways that were developed in absolute inhumane situations. So it speaks to maybe when we heal, or maybe on our path or quest of understanding and accepting and not expecting things to be different, we can understand and start to see where other people are at, and even now, because they're at a different place, maybe that explains a lot of why they are making those choices and why that makes sense to them, and why there's not much we could say to get them or influence them in a different direction. Just because we have maybe a different or a view of, we can see more of the picture, doesn't mean that where they're at is not valid. And I think that's sort of in the topic of how do you support from a distance? How do you leave with love? How do you disconnect with kindness? How do you react with integrity? How do you... I think it's once we decide that we have value, it's sort of this thing that it's like you don't ever want to taint it again. You don't ever want to dirty it or tarnish it or scratch it. And it's either that we have to fully walk away because that person that we were, or how, like, that we were raised like, isn't who we ever were really meant to be. Yet the person we had to become to pull ourselves out of that is also somebody that is a protector. It's not like, it's maybe not also who we are fully meant to be. So then we have to take pieces of those and try to add it to something new. And for me, that's kind of overwhelming. And it's overwhelming when help isn't looked at as help, it's looked at as exposure, and then it needs to be attacked. So there's a lot of work I have to do, like accepting that people aren't going to meet me halfway, accepting that just because I act in kindness, it doesn't mean people aren't going to look at it as weakness and attack. And I need to stop carrying those expectations of emotions where I go, because I find that I will be disappointed more than I'll be surprised. And I guess it's that whole lightning in a bottle thing, right? If you're following this little path with me, I made a post about lightning in a bottle and connections, and I guess it all kind of ties together, right? And I guess that speaks to making healthy. You know, if life is cyclical and history repeats itself, well, then can't we make small circles of brighter, wider light that start to illuminate a direction away from the dark and gloomy and sticky dark energy? I like to think so. Anyways, it's Friday. I hope everybody has a great day. I hope everyone is here and shares some time with me and gives me their perspective in a comment or a question. And I really want to continue these kind of conversations, but I keep feeling like it should be done in maybe a panel where people are able to come up. I'm not positive what format is best to do that with, as far as like StreamYard, OBS, YouTube, or whatever, but I'm going to try to experiment with that a little bit and see if I can figure out a good format where that is workable and productive. Happy Friday.